All right. All right, Dr. Lauren, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. My first question that I have for you is tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started as a sports psychologist.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here today, Laszlo. I'm really excited to speak with you in the community about sports and performance psychology. So my name is Dr. Lauren Lowe. I'm a licensed clinical and sports psychologist here in California and have a group practice called Aligned Sports and Performance Psychology PC. So our expertise and experience is supporting athletes, high achieving individuals, folks who have an experience in life where there is high pressure to perform in any realm of their life. And so for us, we really take a individualized and expert approach to being able to meet clients where they are in whatever life stressor, performance demand, or, life demand is coming up so that they can feel their best selves, both on and off the performance stage.
Hmm.
So that's a bit of what we do, and how I got here is actually through my own experience. I was a Division I athlete in college, and so for me, I think it was paired with a natural proclivity towards caring for others, but also my own personal experience going through, you know, high elite performance and what it's like to have that experience of too much to do, too little time, and a lot of pressure that can come with that. So that's a bit about how I got here and why Align exists.
So tell me a little bit about the actual work that you do as a sports psychologist. What's the nitty-gritty?
Getting down to the nitty gritty. So the treatment that we provide or the support that we can provide is very multifaceted. So many folks can come into us for individual therapeutic support where we will meet one on one with the individuals. Sometimes it's a couple or parents needing support, or also it might be a family. So we really have the ability to treat whoever within a system could benefit from some clinical support. We also provide mental skills and performance coaching, which is a bit different. So this is a service where we focus on goals, performance goals, what we're seeing, what's going on, and having a solution that we work towards. And so that's a more short term, kind of skills focused, goal oriented treatment that some folks find really beneficial when we might just be having, a hard time with the yips as some folks call it, or performance anxiety, and just being able to get out for the hump to feel better and perform our best. And then lastly, one of the most important pieces of work that we do here are presentations, podcasts, supporting systems, being able to provide access to expert care to everyone and anyone who might need it and or could benefit from it. I'm a firm believer that, therapy is for everyone, but also recognize that there are a lot of access issues. And so being able to just provide as many options for resources is what's most important. So that's generally why folks come in to us. We also build out systems. So we've been at a Division I college building an integrated sports and performance program within their athletic department. So we do a lot, but really it's with the aim of creating just a safe space for individuals to come in, be themselves, and navigate all the hardships that life can throw at us.
hmm So, when it comes to like sports psychology, like do you like with all the things that you just described, do you like work with all types of athletes or how do you sort of tailor it to like whatever issues athletes may have? Because you have like football players, you have like track and field athletes, and you have like gymnasts. So how do you sort of do that?
That's such a great question. And so, like, the easiest answer is that every sports system, team system, competitive environment, and like coaching, right? Or support staff, every system has their own unique needs. And of course, every sport is different. And so the way that we best approach it is that sports and performance psychology looks at the whole person within the realm of performance. So for us, we treat every age across the developmental spectrum um, to be able to meet you where you're at, right? So it's not just athletes. It can be, a hardworking professional who is just struggling with balancing work-life balance. It could be, an attorney who's starting to get nervous going into the courtroom, right? It could be a board member saying, I'm not liking these board meetings anymore. How can I, be my best and do my best? And so, there's just such a variety of ways that we can support any environment because as a whole, we're building the same skills. It's just within a unique environment that, you know, not everyone understands completely unless you've lived it, right? We can't assume we understand someone's experience unless, we've lived it. And so I think that's a piece of we adapt to each sport specific need based on the team, the individual, the environment they're in. Um, and everyone needs confidence and ways to flush mistakes when things don't go our way or conflict resolution skills. So, yeah, I know that's a long winded answer, but each sport has similar demands. It just might look different.
Mm-hmm. What was your experience like as an athlete? Did you have to go through what were some of the experiences that you had to go through as an athlete to sort of really use what you've learned to where you are today? Were you like a track and field athlete, if I understand correctly?
So I played lacrosse actually. So I would say if I were to reflect on my athletic experience, starting when I was in high school, I suffered very significant injuries. So I broke my back, I had two knee surgeries. And so I think it was really being able to go through a process of grief, loss, identity confusion, right? I can't play my sport. Who am I? And also losing able bodied privilege, being in a situation as an athlete where you are faced with unique challenges that can rupture our relationship to our body, that can be seen as traumatic, that can be seen as complex. And so I think it was through those experiences that lasted about 6 years. So I was in a cycle of injury, recovery, return, injury, recovery, return, which ended up leading to early retirement and having to take a full year off of all exercise. And so, I think it's having been through challenges and successes and also the medical system as well, and navigating multiple providers and support teams. I think it was taking that and knowing that I struggled with my own mental health during that time. And so I think that it's just all those pieces put together led me down this path.
Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes, athletes they get injured, like they get ACLs, they get ligaments torn. Those are just like some of the worst, right?
Yes, yes. And like, especially for injuries that require surgical um, intervention, uh, it is really difficult for athletes and really for anyone, right, to go through that. Surgery is anxiety provoking, stressful. There's a lot of uncertainty. And so I think it is definitely a primary reason why we see athletes, high achievers come in because for many folks, body movement in whatever way feels good to the individual is a coping tool. And so when we remove that, right, and a major part of your day to day activity, routine, there's a lot of disruption. And actually, injury is one of the leading causes of mental health um, challenges in athletes.
I did not know that. I didn't know that there was a link between injury and mental health.
Yeah, yep. It's for many athletes, they can see this injury as a traumatic event, depending on the impact of the injury. And an injury that might take you out for a year, 2 years, or might potentially be career ending, right, has a lot of implications. And then many athletes, can go on even post retirement to continue to navigate and manage both the physical and mental toll of the experience. So it's very complex. And, for many high achievers, this might resonate as well.
So how do you help other athletes who are going through the same thing with like injuries and kind of all that kind of stuff that you went through with lacrosse?
Yeah, I think for me, I I think it just has built such unconditional empathy and understanding for what an individual can go through. Like I said earlier, I can never assume to walk in anyone's shoes, but I think, you know, for any of us, if there is a shared experience or a way of relating to say, I do understand a part of this, I think that really helps bring people together and join in support, right? Because the number one indicator of change and wellness is actually the relationship with the provider, right? You have to feel safe, open, and able to be vulnerable. Therapy is hard work, and it takes a lot of courage. So I think that it is having that experience being an elite athlete and high performer that does give that extra empathy and understanding to help find an individual's path towards wellness.
hmm And what sorts of modalities do you use in the realm of sports psychology? I'm not sure if in the sports psychology realm there are modalities, but in the mental health side, I'm sure you've heard of EMDR, you've heard of relational therapy, you've heard of attachment based styles. But what about in the sports
Yes,
psychology realm?
that's a great question. I think within the sports and psychology realm, the foundations for every individual might be different. So for me, like my orientation is I'm a relational kind of a psychodynamic clinician. So that's more attachment theory. That's more, developmental. That's what an idea that what happens in the past will present itself in some way in the future. And so, while that's my orientation, other clinicians might have another basis, but I think when it comes to the field as a whole, we have to look at attachment because we're looking at relationships to so many things. We're looking at the relationship to sport and competition, to your body and how it moves, to your mental and psychological well-being. And with taking in all of those layers, it creates an opportunity to really take skills that are from a bunch of empirically based modalities. Like acceptance and commitment therapy is a huge underpinning of a lot of sports and performance work. Different cognitive behavioral therapy interventions, right? Like down regulation tools, thought stopping, those two come in. And so I think, I always say I'm an integrationist, but I think one of the beautiful parts of applied sports and performance work is that we have integrated all of the pieces of what we know leads to wellness and have adapted them to be able to be utilized and discussed within the sports and performance context.
Hmm
So it's a bit of a different language, right? Like with a general provider, we might talk about cognitive diffusion, right? A thought's a thought. And with an athlete, I might say, okay, well, we're just going to need to work on thought stopping. We got to stop those thoughts. So it's just a little bit maybe of a different language and delivery, but all rooted in similar modalities and theories.
Mm-hmm. And what do because I've heard of those thought stopping processes of like because I couple of weeks ago I was talking to my therapist about affirmations, like I can do this or I
Yes,
can do that. So do you incorporate that?
absolutely. So, one of the biggest tools I think we all have as human beings is our self talk. And so, in the sports and performance world, that's self-talk. That's our inner coach, as I said. What's your inner coach telling you? What are our thoughts? What are the ones that are automatic, the sticky thoughts? And utilizing positive self-statements, affirmations, mantras, right? Power stance, one of my favorites. All of these are rooted in adapting how we talk to ourselves because our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are always interconnected. And when I say behavior, we talk performance in this realm. And so, of course, if, our thoughts are negative, distorted, chipping away at us, calling ourselves names, then of course we're going to have a feeling and it's going to impact our performance. So that's something I always say. A thought's a thought. We can control how we react to it. And the more we're able to actually get ourselves into a more positive self talk state, even if we catch ourselves being mean to ourselves and then pivot to say, wait a minute, I did okay. I'm not an idiot. That does make a difference. So, yeah, self talk is a big part. And I think it's such a powerful tool to feel well and be confident. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
big one.
What do your athletes sort of tell you when they visit you for your sessions or like they talk about their struggles, with being an athlete and performing at a high level?
I think that's such a good question. If I were to try and do a theme analysis, I think um, it would be fear of failure is a core. So how fear of failure can present is as a shame anxiety, where a competitive stage, a training stage, some sort of performative stage becomes threatening because of performance pressure, coaches' feedback, a variety of arenas. So fear of failure can present as a primary underlying a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, depression. Um, we also can address, we see a lot of trauma that can get activated, right? So I think that there's a piece in this work as well where sometimes being in a very high and competitive environment can activate things from our past. As athletes and high performers, we might be moving from different systems to systems. In the NC2A, we have a transfer window now. That's a big change for team cohesion and, you know, coaching and all the layers when you have a constantly new team coming in. So, we're adapting with the way the sports world is, but I think, I hope I answered your question, but I think that there's, you know, some some points where it's trauma getting pulled up, fear of failure, performance anxiety, or genuinely just loss of self. I don't know who I am anymore. Why am I doing all of this? Why am I sacrificing? Why am I exhausted and my body's sore or I'm going to rehab for 3 hours because I have an injury, right? So I would say those are some of the primary reasons, and injury, of course, why folks come in.
And so to that end, how do you help folks, with those struggles? How do you make sure that they're seen and heard? Because oftentimes I remember when I went through my mental health, looking for a mental health therapist, I was looking for someone for me to be so that they could see me and hear, my perspective. I was able to do that. So how do you do that with athletes?
Yeah, so I think the way that we can build trust and rapport is, being in the process with our athletes. I think that one of the things from the very beginning that align myself and the exceptional providers here approach is that this is you're taking a big step. And what's most important is that you feel as comfortable as possible and that you feel heard, seen, and validated, like you said. And so for us, we provide, free consultation calls to have a meet and greet, to be able to kind of discuss things, get a sense, meet together, and then of course we can continue to evaluate in our first sessions. But for us, we're feedback informed clinicians. We want to know, hey, how'd that sound? How does this intervention feel? Does it feel like something we can implement or no? And I think that's part of, Align and myself's unique approach is that we're not a one size fits all. We're going to build a toolbox for the individual that can be utilized. And I think that, being able to meet someone where they are, have a shared conversation about what's going on, and demonstrate flexibility, unconditional positive regard, and support can go a long way. Um, and being attuned to difference, being also culturally attuned, being aware of the world we're living in and how it impacts everyone, is also a really critical part of our approach to be culturally attuned, sensitive, and aware of the whole person, which also builds that support.
Hmm. And so what have you learned in doing this kind of work as a sports psychologist?
Oh, I think I learn every day, if I'm honest. What have I learned? It was much easier when I was going through it. So I'm a bit grateful. So that's one honest reflection. But I think what I've been learning is that systems, folks, society, I think as a whole is working to destigmatize mental health and well-being. I think, you know, we have suffered as a world, as a country. COVID took a lot away from
Yes.
all of us. It severely impacted our mental health and well-being, no matter to what extent. And the world changed. And now we're currently living in a world where many folks across all identities and localizations are feeling targeted, attacked, and devalued. And so I think, it's especially in these moments, that I've learned that if the door is open, that's the most important part. And I think, what I strive every day to do is to be, an ally and a citizen to humanity, to be able to understand the whole world context, and that we are very complicated people. Being human is extremely hard. And so I think I keep learning each day to just, we're all doing the best we can. I preach it's okay to not be okay, because the reality is we're all not okay at some point.
Hmm.
Um, and that just there's a lot of need. I think I'm consistently surprised with just the ongoing need of structures, systems, and all that be to really be able to holistically support this population.
Hmm. I know that you said that you did lacrosse for a while, but are you doing any sort of sports thing now? Like actively, like in your spare time, or is that kind of like in the back burner?
Oh, that's such a good question. So, like, it's changed. Okay. Yes, it has changed. So, I would say once an athlete, always an athlete. My current athletic endeavors are related to passion. So currently, I am taking flight and gaining experience in scuba diving. So that's a different, kind of physical and athletic feat. to try. Hiking, not even though I did a running sport, over running. So as you can see, it's adapted a lot over time. I do a lot of yoga, which has that meditation part. So yeah, I would say it definitely looks different and more flexible now, but I move my body for fun and just that own personal challenge because I'm still coping with injury and limitations, and that's okay.
Yeah.
All part of the process.
Yeah, I remember I started this past summer. I was doing an outdoor yoga class, and we did like I think it was a warrior pose, and a woman came up to me and said, like, "Are you doing this?" And I said, "Yeah." Like I haven't caught up. Like she was kind of caught off guard. Like she didn't know
Mhm.
how to do it for some reasons. But I found outdoor yoga to be fascinating because I got it from someone that was going to the event. She's like, "Oh, we've got a lot of
Yes.
great things," and so I decided to do and outdoor yoga. So yeah.
I love that. We can all just, it's just a willingness to try something new, I say. Um, and how we move our body and what feels best to us is a personal and unique experience. So I think it's bravo to you. It took me a while to get into yoga too. So um, A for new experiences in body movement.
Yeah, the hiking stuff is also pretty good. I'm an outdoor person, so yeah.
We're resonating in that. I'm like, if you can get me outside and get me into some nature, like everything helps.
Okay, to wrap this up, what advice would you
Sure.
give to those who want to study sports psychology or who yeah, just kind of in general that want to study what you're doing?
Yeah, I think I welcome folks to explore this profession. I think there is a need, and I think if you're interested and you know able and like looking into it, there are a few resources that I tend to direct students or young professionals thinking about, um, you know, being an expert in this arena. And I think one very, very helpful resource is the Applied Sports and Performance Psychology ASP. Um, they are, top around sports and performance psychology. Also, the APA, American Psychological Association, also has Division 47, which is specifically related to sports and performance psychology. So there's a lot of information there. And then also, I just welcome folks to begin to network, explore, send an email. I'm a firm believer in just send an email and see what happens because that's sometimes where the best opportunities, just like today, come up. So that would be my best advice, and always to just trust the process. And that there are plenty of mentors and support, in this field that are excited and welcome the new generation of providers. So, yeah, I think that's what I would share.
Mm-hmm. All